Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor the Oval Office last week. Bernie, AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different...
If you've ever wondered what happens when the Democratic Party experiments with socialism a bit too aggressively, fasten your seatbelts. Today's story is like a buddy group warning someone, don't text your ex, but they do it anyway. Bill Maher just went off on AOC, Bernie Sanders, and Zoran Manny. This time, it's a full-blown political intervention, not mere irritation. Before we dive in, hit like, subscribe, and comment to share whether you think the Democratic Party is genuinely shifting left or just performing for social media. Your input helps the channel and fuels the discussion. Now, picture the scene. Bill Maher, a lifelong Democrat, sounds like the designated driver watching friends take tequila shots at 2 a.m. Guys, please stop, he says, glancing at AOC and rising socialist star Zoran Manny. Stop for the sake of political survival. Naturally, they don't. They push harder. AOC recently used the classic get to know him line to defend herself against critics, including Maher. Recognize it? Essentially, it's political Tinder. On socialism, swipe right. Here's the irony. AOC promotes open-mindedness and intimate dialogue, yet she rarely extends that courtesy to Trump or most conservatives. Her selective empathy is striking, and her own party's moderates are raising eyebrows so high they're practically in orbit.
What do you say to the skeptics, though, in the party who want to keep him at arm's distance? Yeah. Some who have some problems with him, even some fellow New Yorkers in the swing districts outside the city.
Get to know him. Get to know him. You know, this is not about having any kind of hard line. I think that if anybody is skeptical, I would say get to know him. And once you get into a room with him, kick the tires yourself and make your own assessment instead of just kind of making assessments from what you may see on television. If you have the ability to meet someone in person, you should meet him before you judge.
And Maher, he's not having it. He used one of his favorite analogies, capitalist South Korea versus socialist North Korea at night from orbit. One side glows like Times Square. The other looks like someone forgot to pay the electricity bill. Then he moved to Venezuela, once wealthier than Poland, in 1990 before adopting capitalism. Venezuela embraced 21st century socialism, which turned out to be classic socialism, shortages, inflation, economic collapse, and mass flight. Basically, a greatest hits mixtape of failed economies. Maher's message is clear. New York is not immune. Living in NYC doesn't grant a secret formula for socialism. He warns, don't try to reinvent the wheel. You might get run over. Zoran Manny isn't promising unicorns. He's personable, youthful, and enthusiastic, but his plans often lead to economic sinkholes. Maher surveys the Democratic Party like, is anyone else seeing this rather than celebrating the hype? Critics should get to know Manny, AOC says. Maher insists they study history. And history, he notes, is undefeated when it comes to socialism. Then Maher hit a pressure point, Bernie Sanders. For decades, Bernie's goal has been single-payer healthcare for all 340 million Americans. Yet it failed faster than Vermont. His maple syrup-powered, tie-dye friendly home state could manage it for just 626,000 people. If Vermont couldn't pull it off, why assume New York could?
The kids think that stuff that happened before their appearance on the planet didn't really happen, but it did. We've run this experiment many times, and the results are always obvious. Here's capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea. Yeah. In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's Socialism for the 21st Century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century, or any century, a mess. It turned one of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening.
Ma often reminds people that Manny, AOC, and Bernie aren't traditional Democrats. They're socialists who support democracy, a distinctly different breed. They wear that label with pride. The problem is most voters don't see the difference, creating real brand confusion. But Ma's biggest point, these same politicians denouncing capitalism owe their fame and platforms entirely to the very system they criticize.
Like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor the Oval Office last week. Bernie, AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think
Bernie's books, AOC's brand deals, social media reach, public influence, none of that exists under real socialism. You don't become a superstar critic in a socialist system. The system critiques you instead, and suddenly you disappear.
Election is taking place when we have an administration in Washington which every day is moving us toward an authoritarian society.
This is America, New York City. Don't let them tell you any different. Don't let them tell you that we are the exception. We are the rule. And we set the bar for America. I'm talking to you, Donald Trump.
Let our words ring out so loud tonight that Andrew Cuomo can hear them in his $8,000 a month apartment. New York is not for sale.
And that's the contradiction Maher is fed up with. The people claiming capitalism is broken are the ones thriving in it. That's not to say capitalism is flawless. Maher admits it's chaotic, inconsistent, and often frustrating. But compared with socialism, which has a perfect failure record, capitalism looks like the reliable partner in those viral toxic relationship TikToks. One spouse causing chaos, the other quietly paying the bills. Yes, that's capitalism. The ex clutching a gas can, that's socialism. Maher then turns to Abigail Spanberger, the newly elected Virginia governor who predicted years ago that the party would collapse without a return to the center. Her message was simple. Don't brand yourself socialist. Elections are won by moderates. Extremists make headlines, not victories. She succeeded, not by going radical, but by staying moderate. Did the party heed her advice? No, they tossed it straight into the ideological recycle bin. At this point, Maher's frustration is palpable, like a disappointed parent. Moderates aren't steering the Democratic Party. Its fringes are dominated by the loudest voices who represent Twitter more than voters. Supporting radical candidates isn't bravery, it's political Russian roulette. And the danger? 4 bullets in the chamber instead of 1.
Seems like a nice guy, and I congratulate him on an extraordinary political achievement. But before the whole left side of the country catches socialism fever, let's listen to the other big winner in last Tuesday's election, Virginia Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, who, before the 24 election, said things like, if the party didn't shift to the center, we will get torn apart. And we need to never use the word socialist or socialism ever again. Well, she was right, but they didn't listen. Typical, am I right, lady?
And the silence from the moderate majority is deafening. That quiet isn't neutrality, it's permission. When a party won't check its extremes, those extremes don't just influence the party, they become the party. The data screams it. In 2024, 13 Democrats won in districts Trump carried, not a single Democratic socialist among them. Every think tank reviewing the elections reached the same conclusion. Move to the center. Even the New York Times agreed the middle ground is the smart path and the radicals are wrong. Yet the DNC ignored this advice, blending it into chaos instead of acting. They're not just sidelining moderates, they're doubling down on socialist messaging, subtly sidelining capitalism, and flirting with socialism like, hey, you up?
The party has a clear choice here, very clear. One wing is saying don't ever use the word socialist again, and one is saying,
I am a democratic socialist.
Clear, huh? So how do we decide who's right? Well, it turns out we don't really have to flip a coin. We have the evidence. In 2024, 13 Democrats won in districts Trump also won, all moderates. This isn't rocket science. All the left-leaning think tanks have done autopsies on 2024, and they all came up with the same message: move to the center. Even the New York Times, which did so much to promote woke politics, now says the partisans are wrong. Moving to the center is the way to win. And Democrats should recognize the party moved too far left on social issues after Obama left office.
Ma argues that putting ideology above electability is the surest path to losing elections. He points out that the DNC's biggest setbacks came when they went all in on woke theatrics, symbolic crusades, and fringe issues. Voters don't want political TikTok performances. They want a party led by people who understand Twitter isn't reality and who show competence and balance. He's right. Americans, left, right, or center, want stability, not revolution. They want solutions, not socialism. Yet the DNC behaves like a friend who keeps asking, why do I date toxic people, despite all warnings? We told you before, during, and after the election, Maher might say, yet they're still embracing socialism and wondering why it backfired.
They're quiet quitting capitalism and texting socialism that they're down to. Thing is, socialism will because socialism, to put it simply, just doesn't work and has never worked, like Kevin Federline.
Ma makes another major point. Socialism isn't just a failure, it's a spectacular one. It doesn't fade quietly, it crashes hard. History shows the same pattern every time. Shortages, runaway inflation, economic collapse, mass exodus. Venezuela is the latest example. 8 million people fled, roughly the size of New York City. Responding to AOC's claim that New York is the rule, not the exception, Maher warns, if socialism is the rule, brace yourself, the result won't be prosperity, it'll be collapse.
One of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening.
Then Maher returns to Bernie's Vermont experiment. It's too perfect to ignore. On paper, single-payer healthcare sounds excellent, inspiring in speeches. In reality, it collapsed like wet cardboard. Costs soared, the numbers didn't add up, and this was Vermont, one of America's most liberal states, the ideal testing ground. If Vermont couldn't make it work, how could New York, a massive, complex, and expensive city, succeed?
Make your wishes come true. You're thinking of Zoltar. Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor in the Oval Office last week.
Maher's final message is blunt. In theory, democratic socialism looks appealing, like a dating profile full of perfect photos and inspiring quotes. But in reality, its effects are starkly different, often ending in economic crisis. He stresses the point he's made for years. Fringe ideology isn't what America wants. Americans want pragmatism, competence, and common sense. If the DNC hopes to win in 2028 or beyond, they must stop chasing ideological purity and start appealing to the voters who actually decide elections. Will they do it, or continue ignoring moderates at their peril? Only time will tell. That wraps up today's commentary. Hit like, subscribe for more analyses, and leave a comment. Is the party taking a temporary detour into fantasy or a risky long-term move that could cost everything?